Hello, science people. I'm over here on BookTube because I've been doing this video where I have to solder a thing for like 3 weeks, and I'm not good at soldering, and I burnt my finger, and it'll come out eventually, but like I'm just over here because I don't want to move all that stuff. So just pretend science. All right, I'm here today because I thought it would be fun to deliver a PowerPoint presentation that I presume will be right here, covering that light switch that's the wrong size. You see my Feynman stack? That's so funny. I just have all of that now. Today, my PowerPoint, which I haven't made yet and will make, editing Angela has to do it, it's a future problem. I would call it Why Functioning Governments Fund Scientific Research. It's just something I thought would be fun to talk about, unrelated to anything, like, it's fun, okay? So, a government is not a money-making venture, right? A government is a collaboration of people. You could call it a society working together to provide for each other for like the greater good, because like the sum of our parts is greater than the whole. Is that how that saying goes? Like, we who have agreed to be in the society contribute our labor and some of our income via taxes, and in return, we are owed goods and services by the government, who we have elected to provide us with those things. So, a functioning government would provide, like, safe roads and public parks and healthcare and education, transit. There would be regulatory bodies that like make sure companies are working safely. There would be like public works, like hydro, and on that note, like mail services and communication services, opportunity, public safety, national security. We give them money and they provide those things. It is a contract. It is not optional, right? A functional government, takes care of its citizens. And here's the thing. Here's the thing and how this relates to what I talk about here. What if I told you that all of those things that the government should provide to be a functioning government couldn't happen if not for, highly trained, technically minded people with decades-long history and long-standing facilities and collaborations? What if science and scientific research was literally one of the most important things to having a healthy union? Let's do some examples. How's the mic, by the way? You guys haven't seen the mic yet. I've been using it. I have so many mics. People are gonna yell at me anyway. Don't yell at me. I'm so sweet. I'm so small. This is book Angela. Did I say let's do some simple examples? One that keeps coming up in the news is congestion pricing. Have you heard of it? This is a research-backed initiative. I know. Research was done in public health, and that research was used to make an argument to do a pilot study. And now everyone is like, holy shit, congestion pricing is the best thing. So in New York, congestion pricing, they've raised the price of the tolls for cars at certain times of day. So now cars don't want to come into the city. So now more people are taking public transit. More people are biking. The roads are safer. The noise pollution is down. The buses are arriving on time and people can get to work. They don't have to take the early bus. And all of the businesses in that area, it's like south of 60th Street or something, all of the businesses are seeing more foot traffic. They're seeing more people come in because it turns out people don't want to be in cars. Congestion pricing, gangbusters, it's amazing. Everyone loves it. Do you think of that as a science thing? Because it's 100% a science thing. Public health is a science thing, and a functioning government would research public health and use the results of that research to improve the public health, like they have done in New York City with congestion pricing. It's totally working. Everyone loves it. And also, by the way, it's raised millions of dollars for the city. So And this is a common W for public health implementations based on public health research. Because the thing about scientific research is that it pays for itself over and over and over again. Like, yeah, the government had to fund some researchers to look into this. The government had to fund them for probably years so that they could think of the best way to implement it and run like a very small pilot study and then kind of scale it up. And now that government has millions of dollars in extra funding, the people are happier, the city is safer, the buses are running on time. Science thing. Science works. It's amazing. It pays for itself every single time. Another thing that comes to mind is one of my personal special interests, which is concrete. The government also funds research in materials science, including things like concrete. And in the past 20 years or so, scientists have developed methods of testing the durability and stability and longevity, is that what I want to say, of concrete, without having to destroy the concrete. So now the people who work for the city and are in charge of like building the roads and maintaining the roads, they can test the quality and the lifetime of the road without completely demolishing it, which means, it's good for public health. There's much less road work than there has been in the past. The workers who have to work on the road are safer because they are not on the road as often. Like, the traffic runs more smoothly because they're not shutting down roads all the time to redo roads that they don't need to do. And by the way, it saves money because you're not destroying the road that you don't need to destroy to rebuild it. Research pays for itself every single time. And I know I started this video by saying the government is not a money-making situation. It's not a business. It is there to serve us. That is what we have all agreed as a society to be a part of. We give them taxes. They give us back stuff. We are owed that. However, the more money the government saves by doing stuff, the more stuff they can give us, right? And surely that functioning government would take all the savings and, fund more research, make better schools, give houses to those without homes, and I don't know, literally anything to help the people who are paying taxes. That would be cool. That's probably what they would do. But I feel like there is a part of public opinion that thinks funding science is a waste of money. You hear what they're doing at that university? They're raising eels. They're trying to breed eels in tanks and they're counting the eggs. We're spending money on that? We're wasting our money on that? First of all, I am allowed to do that accent. I am an Appalachian and I am doing an impression of a specific person, just repeating his words. You are not allowed to do that accent. My culture is not a costume. All right. But that's the thing. They think it's a waste of money, but they don't understand that we always get that money back. Any money spent on science always comes back. Think of how much money the government has saved because now they can use computers. Now they can use lasers. Now they can use QR codes, all these things that were invented by scientists. And I want to note that I am not suggesting that America is the only country that does science. That would be crazy and wrong. And also, I haven't mentioned any country, but obviously I'm an American and we're in a situation. But all governments that fund science are all making that money back because all of the science has produced interesting and novel things. It's not an American-only situation, and Americans should be very thankful for that, but we'll get to that. It just makes sense, not only fiscally, but especially fiscally, to give money to a broad range of research groups to investigate science, because that will turn around in return with technological advancements and knowledge and also training new people, right? That's the point of the government, right? The point of the government is to make society for all the people, better. That's the point of it. We give them money. They are supposed to give us stuff back. That's the point of having a government. Because if they don't give you the stuff back, what's the point of living in a society if we don't support each other's stuff? A government is functioning and they are thoughtful and deliberate with how they fund research. They will just make that money back time and time again, forever and ever and ever. I wanted to point that out because people who say science is a waste of money are dumb. That's a dumb thing to say. Let's talk about things that funding science does, other than money, that are more important than saving money. Great. Next slide. So, the technological outcomes of research cannot be predicted beforehand. That's important to know. Fundamental physics research, like studying nuclear magnetic moments, leads to MRI machines. The government gave some folks some money to play around with lasers in a basement. And now we have MRI machines and we can see inside your body. Lasers in basements, pew, 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 fun, 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 has turned into a universal diagnostic for ailments. No one could have called that, like, oh, magnetic moments. Holy shit, I can see inside of your body. No one would have called that. You can't predict that that will happen. That's why it's important to fund science research. You don't know where the science will go, and that's what makes it fun. That's why we like it, but, also, that's why it's important to fund it and stuff. Our stomachs are full of this harmless bacteria. Folks were given money to study those guys. Just look at the little bacteria. Oh my goodness, and now we have CRISPR. Now we can edit the genome of that bacteria and create drugs for completely unrelated illnesses and help people. That's why we live in a society. That's what the government is for. No one can predict where the research goes. No one can predict, I wonder what these little guys are doing in our stomachs turns into. We can play God and edit their genes and give people medicine. We can cure illnesses in this completely novel way that was unthinkable even 55 years ago. And here we are now. It's amazing. It's important. I forgot what my list was. Number 2 on things that funding research does that are important, that aren't about making money. Research provides opportunity. Universities train scientists and engineers. These students, they go on to be the next generation of scientists and engineers. They don't all just go work at a university, right? They go have jobs. They power economic activity. They're movers and shakers or whatever. They learn those skills at a university. The government spends money to train these people, and as a result, they go out and do all the other things, like the jobs and the research and the making apps and all the things. The people who are going to invent the next big thing are encouraged to stay where they are, encouraged to do what they do because they found opportunity. They were able to go to a university and be trained by the smartest people in the country, and they learned those skills and they apply those skills, and that's how you get, I don't know, all the stuff that we like to have. I'm having trouble thinking of a positive technological advancement. You know what I really like? I got a car recently. So my old car was a 2014 or something, and I got a 2022 car. And it has the little indicator on the side mirror when a car is in your blind spot. That's a really cool advancement. I'm sure that's 10 years old. That's cool. Whoever invented that was trained by a scientist. Again, probably not an American, but their functioning governments provide science training. It's part of having a functioning society. My first ever science job was working at a radio telescope in Moorhead, Kentucky, and I was paid by a NASA grant. And my little paycheck said NASA, and it was very important to me at the time. And I'm sure I got $7 an hour for 10 hours a week for the 10 weeks in the summer. They probably spent less than $1,500 on me. But that government grant taught me a lot of things about doing science, and I went on to keep doing science. I am here because the government gave me $1,500 to learn how to use a radio telescope. I stuck around. I went on to get my PhD, and now I make content, but I'm sure other people from my cohort are doing cool stuff that actually matters. Next slide. This is an obvious one. You're the government, right? And you understand the importance of widespread scientific research, right? And then there's a crisis. There's some type of national emergency, and you have in your pocket this huge network of highly skilled, highly trained professionals with decades-long experience, like long-standing research labs and collaborations, and they can just respond to crises. We pay taxes, and in return, the government funds these scientists. And when the shit goes down, be it natural disaster or, devastating pandemic, we have all these people on retainer with lab skills and science training and knowledge and experience to solve that problem. The first COVID vaccine was administered in December of 2020. We didn't even know about COVID until late 2019. That's under a calendar year. And again, that wasn't all America. That's not what this is about. I understand that the world has lots of scientists and they all like this whole situation that we want to have that implies functioning government, at least to me, is also all over the world, but you get it. Okay. That's crazy. Good thing we were funding all those people. Good thing we are researching mRNA vaccines. That's really important. It became really important, and oh my God, wasn't it amazing how quickly they could do that? That's so important to have. The government funds these people, funds these labs, funds these research projects, so they have a backlog of brains and skills and labs in the event that they need that. And that's amazing and important. And if our government isn't spending money on that, I would be very concerned that they're not interested in the health and safety of our union and the people that, pay for that government. I think this is a good spot to talk about different types of scientific funding, because some people, dum-dums, might argue that why should the government be involved at all? Why couldn't we just have like capitalism encourages people to do the best science and research and they would be rewarded because capitalism, it just makes sense. And no. But let's do the obvious example. Let's talk about SpaceX. My least favorite thing to talk about. So first I would like to reference a very fun little blog post that I will link below and you should go read. Let me read it. The title to you. Starship was doomed from the beginning. The fatal flaw SpaceX can't overcome by Will Lockett. Published March 11th, 2025. After that rocket exploded, because they just keep exploding. Which I'm not going to read this article to you. It's great. It's fantastic. I will link it below. But that's kind of what it's about. See, the thing with SpaceX is that it's not a very successful company. Like fiscally, it's a successful company because the government just keeps funneling money into it. But is it successful at what it sets out to do? Can you be successful if like half your rockets just explode? No, you can't, because you see, SpaceX is not headed by scientists. SpaceX is headed by a guy who wants to have billions of dollars. And because he is only in this business to make billions of dollars, he has no responsibility towards being scientifically accurate or doing research or improving the product. All he has to do is, I'm going to Mars. If you want to go to Mars, you must give me money, until the government gives him money. And the problem here is that the government was not going to fund NASA to redo this shuttle program. Instead, they outsourced that to a private company. So now NASA gets less money. That money goes to Elon Musk's company, which is failing to do what it says it's going to do. And now NASA has no shuttle program. It is completely reliant on SpaceX because that's where the money went, even though SpaceX has no interest in, actually making sure the payloads get to space. And this is the problem with relying solely on contracted labor instead of going to universities and government organizations with people who have been working there for years and years and decades, and planning to do the thing they were going to say that they were going to do after you give them the money, instead of just being like, I'm going to Mars. I'm going to go to Mars. This is the problem with relying solely on contracted labor. These are for-profit companies. They are not doing science. They are selling a product. And even if the product explodes 50% of the time, they still got the money, so they don't care about that. Whereas we want people who do science to like actually know how to do science and care about doing science and things. Scientists are tied to science because of their training, and it's not a perfect system, obviously, but getting actual scientific organizations to do the scientific research with the government funds is, it just, if you actually want science to happen, that's the only way I've seen it happen. These for-profit companies just get the government contract and they're like, cool, see you in 6 months when we ask for more money. And where are my rockets? Where is the payload? You said we were going to be in Mars 17 years ago. It hasn't happened. It's lies. It's just lies. And if there were scientists in the government who were overseeing how this money was distributed, surely they would have stopped giving SpaceX money after the first contract, because they say they're going to do a thing and they have not done it. It's a scam company, and it's scamming us, well, the Americans, you and I specifically. It's taking our tax dollars and giving us nothing. Go on, girl. Give us nothing, please. Literally give us nothing. Go away. I think the government has been reticent to give money to NASA because they think the public doesn't want to give money to NASA, which is crazy. People love space, but I also think those people who don't want to give money to NASA do not realize that SpaceX is also taking our money. Like, it could go to NASA. Instead, we've given it to SpaceX. And that guy just has billions of dollars now. He didn't spend it on the research because he has billions of dollars. I've talked about this on my channel before, but I think sometimes when people hear JWST costs $10 billion, they imagine that inside the telescope is $10 billion. And that's not how government funding and projects work. When the government gives NASA, I mean, JWST costs $10 billion, but like, it's not an American telescope. A bunch of countries were involved. It's fine. But when the government gave some of the $10 billion to NASA to build JWST, they didn't just put the money inside the telescope. That money paid the salaries of the researchers, you know, who have jobs doing research. That money paid for like the facilities. The people who sweep the floor at NASA get money from that grant. It's a job creation situation. That money, I mean, in the before times, government contracts were DEI. They were woke, you know, and it was required that a certain fraction of your money was spent on local businesses. That's what DEI means. That part of the grant had to go to like the aluminum fabricator that's in Houston rather than some Chinese company. But we've gotten rid of that now, and that is a job creation situation. That was why. Anyway, the $10 billion goes to building things, paying salaries, doing research, having facilities. It's a job creation situation. The $10 billion does not go to space. That's why, again, to get back to money, that's part of the way you make that money back when you give money to scientific research, because it creates jobs and stuff. When we give Elon Musk $10 billion, he just keeps the $10 billion and, you know, buys Twitter and buys votes and becomes the unelected president of the United States. Like, is that where you want your tax dollars going, or do you want it going to the small local businesses that build JWST? That's the problem with relying solely on capitalism-driven scientific research. You get it. There's a funny thing on the internet when you talk about a negative consequence of capitalism. Like, people just pop up out of nowhere and start screaming about how, like, in Soviet Russia, they only had one type of cereal. I'm sure the farmers in Slovakia who starved to death because the government stole the farms and didn't grow the food would love to go to Mars with Elon Musk. How dare you? Wait till you pay taxes. And it's just really funny because, like, nobody is talking about socialism, babe. I was talking about capitalism. What are you talking about? That's totally unrelated. It's like some sort of anti-socialism propaganda is seeded into these people's brains, and anytime you say anything negative about capitalism, they pop up as if there's only two types of economic systems, as if we're obviously in the perfect one and the opposite is socialism. So if you critique capitalism in any way, you're a socialist, and wait till you pay taxes. Nobody was talking about socialism, babe. I know you're very scared of it. I know socialism's scary for you, but we weren't talking about it. Is the socialism in the room with us right now? Delete your word salad. It's gonna be okay. It's fine. A little recap, as if I'm writing a book report or something. Government-funded science saves the country money. It improves the life of the people through unpredictable technological advancements. Opportunities to do research, to be trained, to become a scientist, keep smart people here, keeps them productive and contributing to the economy, keeps them happy. And I think most importantly, funding scientific research provides technical capital that can be cashed in the event of an emergency. All those reasons the government funds science. Great, cool. But what if they didn't do that? What would happen? Surely they wouldn't stop funding science. Sounds like a bad idea. Here's a list of what I think would happen. That would be crazy if a functioning government decided to stop being a functioning government and stopped caring for their citizens and stopped funding science. First is brain drain. That's what they call it. I don't know if I like that. If the government doesn't fund science, and research is not being done, the people with research skills will leave because, they want to do science. And if they're going to be persecuted for doing science and get secreted away by the secret police, or if they're going to be fired from their job at a university, or if their lab gets shut down, why would they stay? So they will just leave. And usually people with advanced degrees and stuff have an easier time emigrating than people who don't have those things. So they probably can leave, right? But that also means people stop coming here. Immigration is a good thing. And America, since World War II, has been known as like a very good place to do research, to get an education in research. So we have been very lucky for the past 80 years that people immigrate here on student visas to come and do work for us, to provide research to our country that they maybe don't belong to. Hopefully they want to stay here. And if we get rid of the research, that would stop. And that would be a bad thing. I don't know if you notice, but a lot of the doctors and scientists and engineers and like technical staff are foreigners. They're hoping to become American citizens. And it would be bad if those people stopped coming here. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to like a rural hospital, but the vast majority of doctors in those places are not Americans, or at least they weren't born in America. Hopefully they're Americans now, because immigration is a good thing. So yeah, that would be bad. And when all those people leave and all of those people stop coming here, no one is here to train the next generation of scientists. And we lose institutional knowledge. All gone. You can't get that back, right? A lot of scientific research and scientific knowledge is stored in people's brains. And the way you get that information is working at a research institution with lots of people who have been working on that research for 30 or 40 years. You go and you're having an issue and you talk to someone and they're like, oh, you need to go talk to this person. And if all those people leave and spread across the world, there is no way for us to rebuild that unless we somehow got them all back. There is no way to get the institutional knowledge that is held in people's brains because they have had a nice, healthy career that they have been doing for decades, contributing to our economy and our world and our health as a nation. That's all gone. So even if, that government decided to shut down science, that would be crazy. Who would ever do that? Even if, like, 7 years from now, you could start back up, you're starting from scratch. Projects are planned, grants are years long. If you just cut that off, you can't just pick it back up. All of that's gone. No new technologies, no innovations. Schools will close. The economy would suffer. Do you know how many towns only exist because there's a university there? How many towns would just shut down when the schools close? National security would be in shambles. What happens when all the technologically minded people leave? And you have people running the government that don't understand how the internet works? National security in shambles. Inability to be taken seriously on the world stage. How can you come back from that? Honestly, any government that suggested defunding science as a money-saving strategy obviously has no idea how science works or how governments function or how society works, or perhaps they very specifically want to defund science because they very specifically understand the irreparable harm it will do to the country and its people. Perhaps they just want to inflict that harm. You can be evil and stupid at the same time. Anyway, that all seems bad. But I don't think it's as bad as what comes next. Angela, that's crazy. You're being hyperbolic. That's so crazy. We physicists like to pretend to be the most important scientists, but, like, obviously it's medical doctors, right? Obviously. What happens when you don't have a functioning government and you defund all the science? Measles outbreak. A preventable disease that kills people and also is, like, literally one of the most infectious diseases we've ever seen. And people just, LOL, I'm not going to vaccinate my kids for that. They've done their own research. They got the measles vaccine, and their parents got the measles vaccine, but is their kid good enough to get the measles vaccine? They saw a TikTok that told them not to do it. And what does the government say? Well, a functioning government would encourage people to get the MMR vaccine. A functioning government might even say that people who don't have vaccines shouldn't be allowed in public places because it's a health, safety, and security issue for the entire country. Measles is very infectious. What does the government say when there's a measles outbreak? By the way, you shouldn't do that. You can overdose on vitamin A. Ask anyone who's ever taken, like, those Accutane stuff for acne. Like, it can go poorly. But what do I know? I'm not a medical doctor, but neither is this chucklefuck, and people are listening to him. I don't know. I feel like this is where I always get comments that tell me, you're being a little condescending. And yeah, I mean, we can check the dictionary definition of condescending, and I think I would fall into that category. These people have failed their children. They are bad parents. 1 in 4 unvaccinated kids who get measles will die. They are playing Russian roulette with their child's life. But sure, the problem is that I'm being, like, a little condescending. But I would rather them get mad at me and then take their child to the doctor and get them vaccinated, and their child, stays alive and grows up to become an adult, than avoid being condescending and, kids just die from the measles. I don't know what to tell you. Am I being condescending when I tell you historically it's a devastating illness that literally kills children specifically? I know that these people are victims of a propaganda campaign, but, like, come on. It's been the same vaccine since 1968. You can just go to the library and open an encyclopedia and look at the pictures of it's measles. Do you want your kid to die? Is that what you're doing? Like, what is this? And also, is it condescending? Like, let's paint a word picture. I used to live in Boulder, Colorado. I lived there for 3 years. There's a lot that like is awful about it, but it's also like really nice. Imagine it. It's November. There's like 7 inches of snow on the ground, but also it's 73 degrees. And maybe you and me, we're going on a walk. Even in our fantasy, we can't afford one of the $1 million houses in Boulder. We leave our apartment and we go to the neighborhoods and we're walking around it. We have a dog, like one of those chicken nugget dogs, and her name is Fozzie, obviously, and we're just chatting. In our fantasy, we don't have to worry about the government, and we can talk about Bose-Einstein condensates, which is what I would rather be doing right now. And we're just walking, and then we look, and we see one of the very rich people in their very rich house, and she's in her side yard in a hot tub. And she's standing in the hot tub. We can see the water bubbling up. And she's got the ceiling fan open. So, like, the light bulb is on. And she's got a screwdriver and some electrical tape in her mouth. And she's, like, working on the ceiling fan. And I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna die. And you're braver than me. You run into her yard and you're like, ma'am, stop it. You're gonna die. You're gonna get electrocuted. Oh my God, please stop. And she looks at you and she's like, aren't you being a little condescending? I know what I'm doing. And then she gets electrocuted and dies. That's what I feel like the situation is here. Like, in a life or death situation, are we being condescending? Like, you didn't get your kid the measles vaccine, and me telling you you're a fucking idiot for not getting your kid the measles vaccine, is that condescension or is that a life or death situation? Children die when they get the measles. Like, even if they don't die, like, they could go blind, they could be hospitalized for months. What if you failed to protect your child, do the basic level of parenting anyone could imagine to do? Your kid gets the measles. And maybe they don't die. Do you know how infectious the measles are? They're going to give every kid that they come in contact with who's unvaccinated the measles, right? Are you going to tell Brixley that she's the one that gave her classmate the measles and that's the reason you're going to her funeral? Is she going to have to look at their parents? I mean, because obviously it would still be your fault because you're a terrible parent. You can't do the most basic thing to protect your child that people have been doing since the 60s. But like, she's not going to realize it's your fault, and it is. She's going to think it's her fault. She's going to have to grow up knowing she infected her friend and they died from the measles. This is a preventable situation. And also, sometimes people will be like, well, you're not going to get them to come over to your side if you're going to be condescending. And I don't want them over here. They have the measles. I mean, obviously, I am vaccinated, and everyone I know and love and would ever choose to spend time with has gotten their vaccines because they care about me and they care about the other humans in the world, because that's the whole point of living in a society. But that's the thing about diseases, right? Like, it spreads and it mutates, and then maybe the vaccine doesn't work anymore. That's why it's so important that everybody gets vaccinated. But like, no, I don't want to hang out with the people who have measles. And I'm kind of over it. Like, it's just been like 15 years of these weirdos who are like, I'm a little cautious. I did my own research. And they're lying, by the way, because if they did their own research, they would have read the numerous studies that show the efficacy of the MMR vaccine. They would have seen that it's the same vaccine since the 60s. They would have known that their parents had it and they had it and they're fine. Except the best part is they never got the measles. They did their own research by reading a blog or watching a TikTok. They're gonna look me in the face and be like, actually, I have researched it. They're lying, and they're putting their child at risk to support this lie that somehow they're smarter than every single medical doctor that's ever existed. And I'm tired of it. We can't live in a world where we let people just straight-faced say those things. I am just past the point of protecting these people's egos and sitting there quietly while we pretend that they have anything to say. They're bad parents. They haven't done any research. They are risking their child's life to feel some sort of superiority over people who, trust and respect doctors who have gone to school and studied these things and done research over decades decades and decades and to save the lives of hundreds of millions of people by creating these wonderful things. And we're supposed to sit here and let those people in our society? Like, I'm tired. There's literally a measles outbreak. The children, I know murder is a word with legal implications, but this family that, allowed their child to die from a preventable illness because they couldn't take the basic single step you take as a parent to protect your child from preventable illnesses, watched her die from that illness, and then go on the news and be like, I think I made the right choice. Imagine being responsible for your child's death and having to live with that and having every person in your life know that you're responsible for her death, and then going on the news and be like, actually, we did our own research. Like, I understand that psychologically they must have some sort of block that is preventing them from realizing like the severity of the failure of raising their child that they are supposed to love and cherish. Like, they are uniquely responsible for her death, and I'm sure that will hit them eventually. Their child died because they did not get her a measles vaccine. And if you haven't vaccinated your child and your child dies, you will be responsible for their death. It's a basic, simple, well-researched thing you can do. And now there's a measles outbreak. And so many children will die because their parents don't give a shit about them. And we live in a world where the government should step in, because we all pay taxes, we all contribute to society. That's the whole point, that they protect us. And they provide things for us because that's what we're doing here. And the government's like, congratulations on doing your own research. Like, we're all so glad your daughter's dead. Like, this guy wants your kids to die. And people are just like, cool. I guess I'm being condescending. But this was a preventable tragedy. Like, they could have prevented her death and they did not. They failed their child, and now their child is dead. I have no sympathy for them. I have sympathy for the child. I wish she was born to a family that loved her and cared for her and wanted her to be alive, but she wasn't. I understand that it's not possible for all children to be born to parents who love them. I get that, but hopefully as a society we would encourage our government to care in a way that obviously her parents did not. A government who cared for its citizens would mandate vaccines because this death was preventable. This girl is dead for no reason. And so soon we all will be. Will we get the flu vaccine next year? Probably not. What if the bird flu turns into a pandemic? Surely it's only one calendar year until we get an mRNA vaccine for that, right? I mean, other countries will do it because they have functioning governments with research facilities and everything, but our government, who doesn't give a shit about us, probably won't let that vaccine in. So how many people will die because our government doesn't support science? If you're reading the news right now, you're seeing all these people who were in these trials for cancer treatments, and they're just getting all their treatments canceled because the funding was, illegally taken away. And like, they're mid-treatment. Research is how we treat diseases. I would love for everyone to not die from cancer. And if we cancel all of that research, we will die from cancer. And that sucks. What a fun little PowerPoint. This is why functioning governments fund research. So interesting. Fascinating. I'm sorry I'm being condescending, but I also thought that this was like obvious, right? I'm not a doomer though, because that's how they win, People do science because they love it. And I don't think you can kick us out. I don't think all of us will escape and flee to Canada like the people who study fascism at Yale. Two separate fascism researchers at Yale have fled to Canada. That can't be good news, but I don't think all the scientists will flee. And now they don't have jobs and they have a lot of time on their hands. And so I imagine they will run for office. And I think a lot of people will be fueled by anger. I know I'm angry. Can you tell? And we'll see. I'm hopeful for the future. I hope that this is like a moment of reflection, and in the future, people will reference this time and be like, well, this is obviously why science is so important. This is obviously why we want to encourage children to go to universities and study things. And it's not just hard sciences. It's things like public health, education research. Have you guys seen the math the kids are doing these days? Have you seen the 10 frame situation? First graders are doing algebra. It's crazy. All of that was research funded by the government. Government research into how to teach kids math, and now first graders are doing algebra. It's amazing. And yeah, our anger will fuel us, and we will move forward. And I love that for us. Is that what the song The Age of Aquarius is about? So my next video, you'll see me soldering, and it'll be embarrassing. So I hope you stick around. Like and subscribe for more fun videos like this one. Okay, bye, bye, bye.